Welcome to the Clifton Whirly Show. This week we have Nick and Josh, Whirly Birds. What's up, guys?
Not much, Cliffy. How you doing?
Oh man, I'm busy and just a bunch of stuff since we last talked. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of update everybody about what's kind of going new. I know you guys have some new stuff to talk about, right?
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Is Josh still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here for sure. Yes, we have stuff to talk about.
Josh lost sultry voice, so that's the first thing we need to talk about. It's not
Yeah.
there anymore.
Oh
It's
no,
not there.
good.
It's,
I know.
it's
Yeah,
gone.
I'm so glad.
You got that figured out. But yeah,
Yeah.
so why don't we start with Clifton for what's new, Clifton? Because I know that you tried to kill a man with an amp,
Yes.
so we should probably talk about that. And
Yeah. So a lot of stuff, but the biggest thing that happened this week is okay. So let me just back this up. Last weekend me and the family did something completely crazy, and like we decided to take this spontaneous trip down to Florida, and we ended up like going to Disney World for 2 days. It was just totally unexpected, whatever, and we had a blast doing it like that. So like so we decided on a Wednesday that we were gonna drive down that evening after I got done with church and try to get as far down the Florida Panhandle as we could, which is I don't know. To get to the other end of the Panhandle from where I live is like probably 6 or 7 hours. And so, anyways, uh, we decided Wednesday morning that we were going to go, and so just so happened I had two things on reverb for sale. I had the Mesa Boogie 50 caliber amp and the Fender Duosonic, and I mean, it was like it was meant to be. Like all of a sudden, like I got offers that morning, they were what I wanted, and I just accepted it. And I spent like half the day trying to package these things and send them off, and it was a crazy, crazy day. So I send this amp off, and so we go on our trip. We have a blast, whatever. I get back, I think it was Monday, and I get this email. The amp has been delivered, and the guy is upset. Okay, he was like, he wrote me this really well written letter about how I had misled him. That yes, I saw that it had rust all over the amp and everything, but you didn't tell me this had been submerged in water. You didn't let me know the history, and he's trying to use it like leverage to get his money back. Well, first of all, like I don't know the history on the amp. I had taken the chassis apart and looked at it, and there was quite a bit of rust, and I suspected it could have had water damage, but I wasn't positive. And I sold it as is, figuring whoever gets this like probably knows what they're doing, and if they don't want it, then don't buy it. That's kind of the way I felt.
hmm
And so I tell the guy, like, first of all, like it was such a long email. Like I just immediately responded. I was like, well, yeah, if you're not happy with it, I'll take it back because I'm trying to be reasonable. And then
Yeah.
I'm looking back at it, and like he's told me that he has gone on to cut the transformers off the chassis. He's completely taken out the circuit board, and this is where he's realized that this thing has been underwater. Is when he cuts the circuit board out. Underneath the circuit board, he sees all this gobbledygook or whatever that I didn't see, and then wants his money back. And I told him, I said, "You're gonna have to like reinstall all this." And like I thought, well, maybe he didn't completely like demolish the circuit board. Maybe he could just bolt back, like go to the hardware store, get some bolts, bolt those
Yeah. Right.
transformers back on. And he sends me back this thing. He's like, "No, I'm not doing it. If I will send this back, and you're not any worse off because." And he goes down this lengthy discourse about how this is such a dangerous amp, and you could have killed yourself, and blah 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 blah. And I just said, well, I'm not gonna do that. Um, you don't try to send this amp back to me. I'm gonna contact the resolution department at Reverb, and you know what? This just doesn't look like it's gonna end favorably for either one of us. So I'm just gonna seek counsel with them, and basically I was gonna subject myself to whatever Reverb, whatever solution they came up with. I was gonna do that, so I could be fair. I didn't want to get one on over the guy, but like I didn't want him to take advantage of me because it's something a little fishy in it, in that he said that he kept saying, like, in every email, or you could just give me X amount of dollars back.
Well, and it was like a dissertation every single time too.
Yeah.
Like it was like too clean, like the way he was writing it. And like, I don't want to say planned or anything, but I mean, and I know why he didn't try to put it back together or anything. It's because he sawed through the bolts, guaranteed everything was in the chassis, rusted in the chassis. So there was no way he was getting that transformer back on there. He knew whatever he did was not like reversible, where he could just send it back to you.
Well, but if you got the gumption to saw through bolts, you better have a tap kit. You better be able to tap those things back out and put new ones in. I mean, what was his plan?
Yeah,
that's my thing. It's like if you can't just do that and put it back together, I mean, you would have been even probably happy with him just putting it back together so that it wouldn't rattle around on the way back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a gamble on his end, and when you're going to do this, your pictures were fine, your description was fine, not working as is. Here's the photos. You could see the rust. It's not like you just had a picture of the front and back of the amp and were like, oh, it's probably really easy to fix, probably a couple capacitors and whatever. I'm just trying to get rid of it. I don't have the time to work on it. My loss is your game. You didn't do that. You were honest, and the guy was seeing dollar signs and thinking, oh, this is like a
easy
$800 amp, and I'm going to get a nice Mesa Boogie for very cheap, and I can fix it, and it's worth the gamble.
Yeah.
And it's not like the guy even tried to barter with you. I mean, he bought it. He snap bought it, and then like he lost the gamble. I mean, yeah. Anyway,
even that's fine, but the dude took it apart in a way that he couldn't get it back together, which makes me think, if he's not like, yeah, sure, I'll go spend $12, or I have a tap kit, I'll go ahead and tap it. I've did how many amps, so I know I've got these bolts around somewhere. I'll put it back together, no problem. His problem is that he wasn't putting it back together. So what I'm thinking is he got it, and he's like, and he gets excited and starts to pull it apart. And he's like, uh-oh, I broke something. That's what I think. Because the dude, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. If somebody, we used to sell used furniture, right? And I would often get stuff from like yard sales and from other places, and I would repair it and put it out for sale. If something's over my head, I toss it. It's not worth the trouble. But that guy, he got in over his head. He probably broke something, because when you flip that amp on, it kind of made a little buzzing noise, and then it made a sound of a cooking capacitor, right?
Right.
Right. Yeah, it sounded like a bunch of caps cooked. It did not sound like a bunch of broken circuits, and it did not short. It did not smoke. So honestly, I bet that amp could be fixed by a reputable person who knew what they were doing. Because if it was submerged, fine, but that thing is dry by now. And I've seen people take more complicated electronics than that and clean them up and get them operating again. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it probably was. I mean, if he found mud in there, I'm sure it probably was submerged. And I don't know enough about amps to know if things are submerged and they've had that long to dry out and whatever, if they'll still work or not, or if they're dangerous or whatever they are. But I mean, the danger thing is probably going a little bit overboard. I mean, Clifton turned it on already. He said that. He didn't die. I mean, it's not like you're not going to lick the chassis when you turn it on,
Yeah.
I mean, you had it on for a good 10 minutes, didn't you, Cliff?
Yeah. I mean,
you had it on for enough time.
Yeah, it was a while.
It's not like he's gonna he's gonna stick a screwdriver into the transformer after he turns it on.
Yeah, that's the thing. If it got far enough along to cook a transformer or cook a cap and not smoke, then I bet that thing could have been fixed by somebody who knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
That's my thing. It's like, okay, it's you get in there and it looks all like that, but yeah, I mean, you look at the pictures, you kind of knew what was going to happen there. That thing had been sitting in a shed somewhere, or sitting in a garage, or could have been flooded. We don't know what happened to it. You don't know what happened to it. Could have been in a basement. Well, I don't know about how common basements are there, but
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
thing was that it bothered me that this guy, he was so adamant about, I've got this chassis and this cabinet I can still use. Like, this is the price. You should refund me this X amount money back. And it seemed like I don't know, it seemed like something like a normal person would just been upset and wanting a resolution, and I would have worked with somebody like that. But it seemed like he was kind of trying to dictate to me what I should do. And I knew at that point, like, I needed to get Reverb involved and just kind of submit myself to them. Because I knew at that point, like, there was nothing I could do that would make both of us happy. And so anyways, I submitted it, and it took about 24 hours for everything to clear. But, the guy from the conflict resolution, or whatever they call it, he contacted me by email and said, okay, so this is what happened is, you were an inexperienced seller and you sold this to this guy, and he was upset, but then he damaged it. And I was like, yes, that's, I guess. Yeah. And, so anyways, and he was like, okay, well, he said, it's your discretion if you want to refund or not. That was kind of vague, and I got to thinking about it. It's like, he just basically said that if you want to refund this guy, you can, but you're not obligated to.
Yeah.
And so I just said, well, what do you think I should do? And it's like, I'm willing to submit to whatever you say I should do. And he said, let me contact the buyer and hear his side of the story. And it was well into the next day, and he finally got an email back and said, look, we've handled it. You don't have to do anything further. Dodged a bullet, guys.
Yeah, for sure. Now, did he tell you what he did?
No, he didn't tell me what. They came to resolution. I can guess maybe what happened. Either I thought of one or two scenarios. Like, either one, like, he didn't have a case to stand on, and they just said, sorry, you're stuck with it. Which I really don't see Reverb doing that.
No.
I think that they tried to make him happy, and I would imagine that they probably just offered him like a credit or a gift card worth whatever he was asking for, or close to it.
Yeah. So do you think, I mean, kind of when you showed me the letter, I get that a lot. People who spend a lot of time maybe thinking about it, or have a lot of time, say retirees, or people who do their hobby more often than not. Sometimes it's just that's how they talk, because they have all day to write a letter about this stuff. Yeah. But it did kind of seem like he kept on asking the same thing over and over again, and had a very specific thing in mind that he wanted you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me wonder if Reverb didn't say, okay, this is like the 5th time you did this exact thing, and so you're gaming the system a little bit, man. We see that, because I mean, if he had that stuff all prepared like that and whipped it back at you, that could well be that he's been doing that, and you can only scam Reverb so many times before they're like, hey, we're probably not going to do this again.
Yeah.
But it's one of those two options. Either it's just an old dude with a lot of time on his hands, or he is probably a bit of a scammer, because he did have a very specific thing in mind that he wanted to do. He wanted to get in. Wasn't that pretty close to what you bought the amp for, what he was offering you?
Yeah, he wanted me to like go half off.
Yeah.
And like give him half the money back. and that would have put me like about what I bought it for, which under normal circumstances I might have done. But something just didn't feel right about it. Like I didn't want this guy to. Well, let me just say, last time I had a problem with Reverb, I didn't. I did contact them about a resolution, but even they told me I didn't have to do anything. But I kind of felt guilted into giving the guy like a partial refund back.
Yeah.
And so I did, but I kind of felt after thinking about it, and what really did it in is I put up a thread on 60 Cycle Hum about it, and there was all kind of answers all over the place about what people thought I should do. There was a guy who said he had sold pedals, and people would do this very same thing where they would come back and say they weren't happy with it and wanted like a partial refund, and he was like, I would put it past people to get something and then like look for a technicality in the way the ad was written, or find something they could point out and then like try to ask for a partial refund so they could turn around and flip this and make a lot of money on it. I don't know if he would do that with a broken out, but I didn't want to give into that.
You might have seemed like a victim too, just because you saw right in your post that you didn't know what was wrong with it. Mm-hmm. Like you had clearly bought it. Like your post was very, like it was obvious that you weren't like an amp tech guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you didn't know a lot about it. You were like, I'm not. You basically just said I don't know what's wrong with it. I do know it does this, and I do know it does this, but I'm not going any further with it. I don't have the time to do that or whatever. So he probably saw that and said, oh man, since this guy doesn't know what he's got, I can make him feel bad. And he's going to drop the price down, because he could have just haggled with you off the start and said, this looks like it has water damage or whatever. It's all rusted or some major humidity problems. Will you knock $100 off it? He didn't even do that. He snap bought it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That's what gets me.
Yeah.
I mean, we're beating a dead horse at this point, but I'm just glad that they resolved it. Did he give you feedback?
No, and I asked Paul. Paul reached out to me, Paul Pennington, when I was going through all this, and he was kind of asking me, what's going on, and I told him the resolution, and I said, my main concern is this guy's going to still like give me a terrible rating. And he said, well, whenever you go into conflict resolution, like they aren't able to rate you anymore.
Oh.
And I said, well, if that's the case, that makes a lot of sense, because you can't expect it. Like it got resolved on both our ends, I'm sure. And it was favorable. It was stressful to go through, but it wouldn't be fair for somebody to turn around, and even if you got the issue resolved, to turn around and blast you and ruin your rating.
Yeah, that wouldn't be right.
I think that if you didn't do anything, if you just flat out did not respond or didn't do anything, then I think that even then, as soon as it goes into conflict resolution, then because I don't think Reverb wants low ratings on anything. They want it to look like everybody's pretty reputable, and they want to make it so that it looks right. It's made right by them every time, which is great. But that's kind of what I think he was actually shooting for. Because and we'll probably move on because we don't want to get Cliff upset about this again. But
no, it's repressed.
But no,
it's repressed.
I really think that there's a mentality today, and I was seeing some of it in the Hum thread, where people seem to think that 80 or 90% of it's on the seller,
Yeah.
And the seller needs to do whatever is necessary to make the buyer happy. And I mean, I understand that to an extent. But when the buyer stops being a profit to the seller, the buyer is no longer the buyer.
Yeah.
Like when a buyer is constantly contacting a certain cable company about silly questions all day long, Clifton. No, I'm just joking. But no, when a buyer is constantly trying to get the best deal out of everything, you know what? I mean, eventually that company's not making money from that person anymore, right? And that person, when it's person to person, it's even worse, because it's like you're wasting your time, right? Your time, and wasting your stress and upsetting family balance and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
making you feel bad about, hey, I was thinking I could make a decent amount of money on this, or even just get rid of it for the same amount I bought it for, and now I have to put all this time into it, right? It's
Right,
terrible.
right. Well, I'll tell you this: I will never deal in amps again unless like it's just something that's like off the shelf, brand new. Like I'm not dealing with it. I've done okay on other things, but the internet's not a place to be trying to sell amps. Like it's better to
No, and
list it on Craigslist and have somebody come check it out. And,
Absolutely.
exactly. And the thing is with an amp, I mean, they're heavy. They take a long time to package up. You can never be confident that the thing's not going to get damaged. There's so much that can happen, in transit. They're just, people don't like to pay the high shipping. They're not worth it. I mean, that's why you always see amps on Reverb local pickup.
Yeah.
I mean, that nobody wants to deal with it unless it's like a vintage amp that's worth a ton of money, and there's a really small list of buyers that are interested in it, and it's a shop that's has it insured and knows how to ship it and everything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Good on Reverb for that though. I mean, I remember when eBay switched over and was basically just siding with the buyer all the time.
Yeah.
And people started moving over to Reverb, and I know they have to pay attention to that, because if that starts happening again, it's going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
Like that. Well, I'm going to use Reverb anymore. There's no protection for us as a seller. I mean, you have to listen to both sides.
And they gotta love that 2% for just doing that 1% of arbitration, right? I mean, they gotta love that return.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to be in that business where basically you're just providing customer service and you're not doing any of the back end at all. That's just,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
that's such a brilliant idea, Reverb. I'm still buying from them though.
Yeah.
I tell you, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, they seem like they really, and their customer services seems to be really good.
Oh yeah.
I haven't had a problem with them yet. I think they're great. I've sold and bought, not as much as you guys probably have yet, but from what I've heard so far, they've just been very polite and very fair. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, what's new with you guys?
Well, you're getting some pickups done, aren't you?
Yeah, I
Josh?
am. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not quite done yet. I just got my first picture from Nick, and it's not on Nick from Great Lakes Pickups that they're not done yet. Basically, we went back and forth, had conversation about it. We decided we wanted flat pole El Nico 5s, vintage wind, and then he couldn't. The company that he buys his parts through didn't have those in stock, and then they come back and they say, well, they can't get them. The only thing they can do is he can buy the magnets and then buy the bobbins, and then put them together that way. And so he showed me these staggers that were barely staggered, like they were staggered for a 9-inch radius rather than a 7. I'm like, yeah, let's do that, because I still like the sound of a staggered pickup, even if my neck is a little bit different radius. So yeah, he showed me the first picture, and I was like, man, I want him now. I want to get him in there into my Strat, and yeah, I did, because I discovered playing it Sunday that it's definitely the pickups that I don't like right now.
Yeah.
They were very hard to control, and I made it better by watching some videos. And I found out, this might be something we could talk about for a minute. I found out that I really liked them. I was watching some videos, and a lot of these Strat guys will take the bass or take the neck and the middle pickup, and they'll almost bottom them out against the pick guard. And man, I like that a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of that those Strat wolf notes out, where you'll have these notes on the neck in various places where they're not even. It takes those out, and it adds some air to the bass, to the air and lightness to the neck in the middle pickup, and then you can actually get the bridge pickup hot enough that it almost balances out, and stays a little bit mid-rangey without getting sharp. Because if you have the bridge up at all, it seems like, the neck up at all, it seems like the bridge has to be almost touching the strings to meet it, volume-wise.
Huh.
So it was really interesting to do that, and plus I like the almost acoustic sound of the in-between positions, but it's still definitely, the pickups need work. They're not clear at all. They're both pingy and punchy and fuzzy and muffed at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there's just too much junk going on there. But on the upside, I also did the same thing to the Talman to its pickups, and I'm like, man, I'm liking this a lot better too. Just pulling them away from the strings a little bit, because it's like you have more control. You can dig in a little bit more, and you don't get that magnetic interference with the strings. So I guess that's what's new with me. I've
No,
been
that's. Oh,
yeah.
sorry. I wanted to get in on that
Go ahead.
actually, Josh,
Go ahead.
because I found out the same thing this year. I always used to get my pickups as close to the strings as possible whenever I set up a guitar, especially a Strat. And I always just figured, that's what you wanted, right? You want to get every bit of output out of that thing, and there's a guy that does a really good Strat setup video on YouTube. I think he's like the Strat Man or something, Dad Rocky like that.
Yeah.
But my dad, ironically, was the one that sent me the link, and he's like, "You got to watch this." And that was one of the first things he said was everybody sets up guitars wrong. He's like, especially with Strats, the further down below the string they are, the less magnetic interference, the more acoustic the Strat sounds.
Yeah, that's what I watched. Yep.
Yeah, you get that resonance of the string moving.
Yep.
More, and they sound way better. And I've done that on all of my stuff now. And sometimes you'll see, like, even on like Les Pauls, you'll see or some of those old jazz boxes, you'll see that the humbuckers, the PAFs are like bottomed.
Yeah.
Like the pole pieces are bottomed completely out of the damn the pickup cover. You won't even see the pole pieces there. And that's got to be one of the reasons. And they also get brighter as you move them down. The higher up increases the output, and you get more bass response or muddiness.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so I thought the opposite. I thought it made them clearer when you put it up. And I was talking to Nick about that, and he's like, "But yeah, make sure you don't put those, especially the neck pickup, don't put it too far up there." But yeah, I think you're gonna love those, man.
I'm still looking forward to it.
You probably just sell your Tallman.
No. Actually, if anything, I'll get him to. I even told him, if I really like these, I'm probably going to get a greasier set of pickups for the Tallman, because I really like the pickups in it right now, and I like the idea of having a muscular guitar and kind of a finesse guitar. I like the idea of that, but that both kind of feel similar. Because I think some weeks it's nice to have a guitar that can really do those light ethereal things, and some weeks it's really nice to have a guitar that I can just really dig into. And the Tallman's really good for digging into. The Alvarez is not so much. So that's what's new with me. And actually, I'm it's pretty interesting to see how even thinking about pickups has changed my playing over the past week. What about you, Nick? What's new with you?
I got the Recording King all set up, because I think the last time we talked, I was going to get a setup.
Yeah.
So I got it set up. The guitar came back. I actually had, I don't know, did the last one, did I talk about who I had do it? I don't think I did.
No.
Okay, so I wanted to get it done at Rainbow Music, but Pete told me that I couldn't get in until April 13th. So, because he's booked up. So I said, well, that stinks. And I brought it back to Guitar Center because I wanted to see at least what was going on with that 7th fret buzz. And I asked to talk to their tech, and he said, I think I know what's going on, bring it in. And his name was Zach, and he was a younger kid. And started talking to him, and he was like, well, I think I do this, this, and this, and this. And it looks like you got a couple wobbly frets here. He's like, I can set it up for you for $50. And after talking to him for a while, I felt comfortable, and I just said, yeah, go ahead, do it. So he did it, and I got it back. It actually took like a week. He told me a couple days, and it ended up being a week. I wish he just said probably a week. That kind of bothered me. But yeah, it came back, and it was great. Although I had him put the setup came with a set of strings, but it had to be the Didarios. And I was like, I guess. So those are dead after 4 days. So like average, I worked on my kitchen all last week. I didn't get to play guitar much, but between the, everything going on, and like I played it really hard when I got it back, the strings were already dead like today when I picked the guitar up.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they're just not, and they weren't the phosphors, they were like the brassier looking ones. I don't know what they're called, like the EJ14 or whatever they are, or I don't know what they are, but they weren't as warm as a phosphor bronze. They couldn't have been phosphor bronze, but yeah, I took them off. I got a couple sets of retros today and put retros back on there, and the thing sounds really good again. I also I got a Fishman pickup. I got a Neo D, the single coil, and I installed that, and I love it. It's playing great, and Yeah, I took your advice, Josh, and got that Oasis case humidifier.
Yeah.
Um, that's one of the best $20 I ever spent. And I made sure I went out and got distilled water too, because I heard, I guess, distilled water really messes non-distilled water, I guess, really messes that thing up or something like that.
Yeah, but I've been using it, I used distilled water with mine for the first year and a half, and then I switched to using just bottled water, and it seems to
Hmm.
still be working just fine. And the
Oh,
nice
okay.
thing is you can go buy after you'll watch it, and eventually those little gel things will start to dry up in there, and you can just go buy another packet of those and put it in there. And what I love about it is the case humidifier does not go in between the strings there. I've had 3 different humidifiers in my Martin over the years, and the first one was plastic. It was one of those Planet Waves ones,
Yeah.
and I would fill that one up. And first off, that one you could never get it completely dry on the outside, and so it would destroy the D and the G strings because you're putting in between there. And then the next one was like the Oasis, but then it would go through the hole, and still it didn't feel like it was humidifying the neck,
Hmm.
And that's what I feel like is missing on a lot of those humidifiers. It's like the neck is what feels weird. I mean, the guitar might sound a little weird, but the neck feels weird really quickly if it gets too dry.
Hmm. Frets get sharp.
Yeah, they get
It's the first
sharp
thing you notice.
and it starts
Yep.
to buzz in places.
Yeah.
Clifton,
Yep.
do you have to humidify where you're at?
Not normally, but this winter it got really dry around here because we had an abnormally cold winter, even in the south. I mean, we had like 2 ice days. It was crazy, and I had brought my Martin to work with me one day, and I left it on the car by accident, like for about half an hour, and I went and got it, and I took it out of the zip up case, and was playing it, and the side cracked on it.
Ugh.
And I knew that was because of the cold and the humidity not being right.
Yeah,
And
man.
that made me so sick. And I still
Yeah.
haven't gotten that fixed. So
Was that the little check mark on the top,
no,
or is that?
it was on the side.
The rib, yeah.
Yeah, like
Oh,
on
okay.
the bow.
I thought
Yeah.
you had a little bit of checking on the top, and I thought that just looked cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
like or at least the picture looked like it
Cross
like you had
graining, I
some
think,
checking.
yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah.
No,
I actually had commented on Instagram that your guitar had aged very well because it looks really it looks really cool.
Oh,
on
you're
top.
talking about my Taylor, huh?
Oh, you're talking about a different guitar?
Yeah, I'm
Talking
talking
about
about
the
the little Martin.
No,
Oh, the little
the
Martin.
dra-
I was
the-
like,
the GD Junior.
you wouldn't have left your Taylor 714 out in the car. I take it.
No, not normally. I've done that once or twice, and man, felt so sick in my stomach. Like when I realized what I had done.
Okay.
I think with people from our area though, Nick, I think it's a very different thing. You do not leave your guitar in the car any time of the year
Oh, wow.
in this area.
No way.
You just can't because it's either way too hot and way too humid, or it's way too cold.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I'm going to go Sunday morning, the guitar does not leave. The guitar and the amp do not go into the car before I do. I'm immediately, putting them in there as soon as I'm ready to go. I don't put them in there a minute before. And then if I'm like on Wednesday, I take my guitar to work, it comes out immediately because I've seen and I've had happen too much stuff with guitar just because of weather in this area.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in your area, it's kind of most of the time it's like, okay, well, it's always kind of humid, right? So you almost have to do the opposite.
Yeah,
And it's always kind of the same temperature, not like us.
yeah.
Nope,
It's
I
definitely
lost
an interesting scenario. I mean, I'm like the exact opposite of what you guys have to deal with.
Yeah, I lost an $850 longbow last year because of that.
Ooh.
I left it. It was one night. I left it, or one day. We had that really. Actually, no, it's probably over a year ago now, maybe almost 2. But I left it strung in a car because there was a storm, and I forgot it in there. And it was like that super hot August we had a summer ago, and it was like, it was bad, and the humidity was bad, and yeah, the moisture got underneath the fiberglass and it destroyed the bow. So
Yeah.
you don't do that around here. And not only that, but it can go from like 30 to 65 like
And
in a
then
day.
back down to like 10 at night.
Yeah, Michigan is so terrible on everything. It's the same with like, your strings dying fast and like,
Yeah.
there was that string thread the other day, and I was just thinking, I wonder how many of these people live in like the Midwest or like Michigan or like, I'm like,
Yeah.
cause strings just like my mandolin strings, like I have to use like elixirs on that.
Me too.
Like the humidity on the mandolin is just like it goes crazy. The strings will rust right off the mandolin.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, but
Yeah, and I see these people playing outside and it's like, there might be a week of the year that I'd like to play outside. Because I don't like having my guitar. I mean, I don't like having my guitar outside because it's either gonna have too much humidity, too much wind, too much, and then 5 seconds later it might rain or.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things.
Crazy. Well, talking about strings, I wanted to bring up an odd topic that there was this thread going on, and I saw it posted in Gear Talk and 60 Cycle Home by the same guy.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how like there was these guys who would come into the shop, and they like to play this certain style of Mexican music called Sierreno or something like that. And what it is like they would take these 12 strings, and instead of playing like put an octave set on it, like they would put like 2 sets of strings like side by side, so they basically were playing in like unisons, pairs.
Yeah.
And how it was like tearing up the guitar by all that tension, and he was complaining about it. And it was that thread had a life of its own and a lot of opinions all over the place. But I thought it'd be hilarious. I've got this Epiphone 12 string that was my dad's, and the neck is so like warped on this thing. It just it's the string height is crazy, and so I knew I couldn't really do any more damage to this. So I took off the octave pairs off the guitar, and then I put on like some spare like strings that I had laying around. Like it was makeup of mostly like old Gear Supply strings that I had bought off a buddy. And so I matched each string for string. Of course the nut was not cut for any of that. So a lot of buzzing going on. And I just went live with it and had a lot of fun. But I left it on because it's kind of a unique thing. It definitely is. It sounds very chorusy, and it doesn't have the high end sparkle that a 12 string normally has. But I don't know. I even spent some time listening to that style of music, and good examples of it. I enjoyed it. It was definitely interesting what they're doing, and so that made me wonder. Us culturally. What do we perceive as being good or bad, and then like another culture like eats it up, and sometimes things just even musically with styles don't translate very well. I mean, what do you think are some other examples of this?
You know what? I have the perfect thing. The first time I went to Indonesia to meet my wife's family, there was a wedding going on, and they were playing this music, and it basically sounded like 80s to 90s dance music.
Uh-huh.
And basically what they did is they took Eastern music and Indian music and mixed it with Western pop, and they call it dangdut. And it's it's just all over the place there and insanely popular. And to me, it just sounds like karaoke music, and karaoke Bollywood music combined together.
Yeah.
And it's like really interesting because now K-pop is becoming a huge thing over here still, and it's been for years now.
Yeah.
And when I was listening to that, I'm like, there's no way that this would ever come to America and be something, but now it is, and it's like. And now you hear some of that dangdut influence. I can hear bits and pieces of that, and bits and pieces of the stuff that I heard 10, 15 years ago over in Indonesia, and when I was in Singapore, when I was in Japan. And it's like, holy cow, it's coming over here, and it's stuff that I never thought in a million years would come into American music. Like, I mean, they were auto tuning every note and doing these microtonal runs back then, and now we're getting into it, and it's like, wow, you know. And it's just to my point, it's like we can think that something like this will never be American. That, like, the examples that he showed were that you found of that music, it was so off. Some of it was just so off time. Like, there were three people playing different times, literally playing different times, and the guitar, like, I noticed the 12-string guitar would speed up and play these things in the same way by every guy who played it. They would do this thing where they would play these phrases in the same, like, meter. They would speed up in the same way and go off from everybody else in the same way. So it must be a style thing, but I could not get it, you know. But who knows? Maybe 5 years.
It sounded like they just, like, did whatever they want.
Yeah.
Like it's like that. It was like that. Have you ever seen that one like YouTube skit where the guy, it's a wedding singer in a band, and it's really like it's an older band, and then the drummer's just going crazy in the background, and they're all just standing there, and he's like Animal.
Yeah.
It's like that. Like, they're all of a sudden they're playing and Animal. Like, this guy just starts going to town and, like, shredding out, and it's wild.
Yeah, for sure.
I actually like the guitar sound. I'm not one for really zingy piezo stuff, though. But I like the unison, like you said, Clifton. It's kind of like a chorus doubling effect, like a light chorus, but on an acoustic. And I thought that sounded really neat. The other thing I got a kick out of was the neck cams.
Yeah, that was like they were doing. And the thing is, that what they were doing, it was like, you know, you put that on a Telecaster, and it's kind of average rock riffs, right? Yeah. I mean, the stuff that they were playing is what it does. It just sounds like kind of average rock riffs played on a Telecaster. If it was played on a regular instrument, but put it on the 12-string and do those unison things, I think it confuses it just enough that it sounds like they're doing more than they are.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it makes you sound like you're doing something really impressive. And that's what I gathered, is it made a way to kind of make you pop a little more.
Yeah.
Well, and how much of it is visual too? Like, we the three of us had a conversation about this. Like, I really like fingerstyle music. Like the Michael Hedges stuff and things like that, like Andy McKee and those guys, the Rosses of the world, the slap poppers and harmonics and stuff like that. Those guys, but I can't sit around and listen to a CD full of that. I have to watch a video. Like, I want to see them do it. Like, if you don't do it, it loses something. And that's kind of what I thought of this. And I noticed that they all had the neck cams and stuff like that, because it's more interesting when you watch these 3 or 4 guys standing there with their cowboy shirts and the belt buckles and the hats, and then one guy all of a sudden starts shredding out on this, like, 12-string. Like,
yeah, I can see that.
There's some energy there, you know. And I guess that kind of brings me into my example with mine's polka. Like, polka, the only time you see polka around here is during the Polish festivals and then during Oktoberfest. And that must be where the polka bands make all the money.
Yeah.
But my family's very Polish. My mom's maiden name's Stemki, and every wedding I ever went to when I was a kid, my mom had 5 brothers, or has 5 brothers, and Polish weddings. I mean, with the, you know, just everything you could think of. And everybody danced. I mean, it was when you heard that, you look around and be like, that's my jam, and everybody's on the floor.
Yeah.
You know, and not just the chicken dance. You know, it's everything.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's down here in Oktoberfest too. Like, everybody's on the floor. People are laughing and having a good time, and I enjoy it. Would I be able to sit there and listen to polka on CD? No, I mean, that's not happening. You want to see, like, the guys in the lederhosen with the accordion and you know, all that. And it's an atmospheric thing. It's like, it gets you, it sets the mood, it gets you in a vibe, you know. And you think you could probably say the same thing for salsa music,
Zydeco.
Yeah.
Zydeco,
Oh,
Dixieland
Zydeco's a
jazz.
great example.
Yeah.
Yeah, great example.
Yeah.
That's a great example. Yeah, I mean, and maybe that's it. Maybe we don't get it because we're not there to see it. It's like not
Yeah.
part of our culture where we grew up with it and we come to crave it every once in a while. You
Yeah.
know, so we think it's silly. But that's what I thought it was. Josh was like, I think Josh's comment was like, "That's hot garbage."
Yeah.
and
Well,
everybody was like, "Well, it's kind
Yeah.
of traditional." Blah, 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 and he felt bad.
Well, actually, I really didn't feel bad. I felt like, I can't understand it because even if it's traditional, even if it is, we all have a heartbeat, right? And even in Indian music and in music with complex meters and compound meters, you still got a heartbeat going through because humans are alive and we have a beat in our heart that moves, at however many beats per minute. And there's a subdivision that works, and sometimes you can layer those subdivisions and they work. Like if you listen to African drum circles and stuff and world music, it's like you've got 4 or 5 rhythms working against each other, 2s and 3s and 5s and 7s and 9s, and they repeat every 8 times around. There is no repeating of this. It is random, chaotic stuff with, and it's like, the thing is, it's not traditional. It's stuff that they heard on the radio and they translated to the traditional instruments. It's kind of like bluegrass. Bluegrass is not a traditional music. Bluegrass was Bill Monroe and his guys trying to take a big band sound and push it down into a 5-piece. It's taking that sound and pushing it down into a 5-piece that they can set up and break down super quick and not pay the 15 guys because that's how Bill was, and they accomplished that well. I think this is accomplishing what they're trying to accomplish very poorly.
Yeah.
And maybe that's traditional.
And
but
the guy went on to say that there was a culture behind this certain type of music that was glorified drugs and cartels and everything like that. I didn't know. I couldn't pick up on that from watching these guys, in these cowboy outfits, whatever. And of course, it was in another language that I don't speak. Yeah. But it was entertaining to me for sure. I think of a couple examples, and like I mentioned Zydeco because that's kind of bigger around here, and I still don't even relate to that culture. But maybe even like Southern gospel is huge in the South, and that's one of those things where people, they just show up at churches and they sing, and people get into it, but like, people buy those albums and then I bet they don't really listen to them because a lot of times they're poorly produced. It's like, and I know there's like good Southern gospel and then there's just mediocre Southern gospel, but and then bluegrass has a culture of its own, and it's there's a lot of styles of music that have a counterculture to them. I even dare say praise and worship has its own counterculture, and the things that are easy to make fun of from the outside, but you have to like be immersed in that culture to get it.
Yeah.
Oh, I totally agree with that. I'd even go on to say that I'm like that with blues. I love blues, slide guitar playing, obviously, but I can't like work out to it. I can't sit around and just listen to it all day. It gets boring. But I'll go to a concert and be mesmerized by it, or I'll watch a video and just like, and I can't look away from it. Like I'm just amazed. Yeah. And there's just an element to that, and that's a culture too. Like I think part of the reason why I don't get deeply rooted in the blues, or I don't get taken away with the blues, is because I did not live any of that. Right. Yeah, like I'm not in that culture. Like for me, it would like folk or something would appeal more to me, or they're not writing about what I know about. Yeah. So I can hear it and appreciate it and love the sounds and love the visual imagery, but I'm not into the culture of it. Like I'm not totally immersed in it. It's a lot of the same kind of thing. Like it's same as bluegrass. If you walked up to Wheatland and all of a sudden the bluegrass circle forms near you and you're watching it, you're into it. And I've gone to that trap before where I've got there and I bought CDs and got home and like never listened to it again.
Really?
Like it's just not the same.
I
Like
have
I
no
can't,
problem listening to bluegrass.
I can't feel the instruments. I can't like, yeah, but you can only listen to Cannonball Rag so many times, man.
That's the problem, is that you're not listening. That's the problem with bluegrass. There's two fronts, and it's kind of like the same with jazz. There's the front that's like, this is what it is. A jazz is this and is pushing forward. Bluegrass is this and is pushing forward in this way. And if you push forward in any other way, the bluegrass police or the jazz police will get on you. And that's not jazz. That's not bluegrass.
I'm pushing in another CD. That's what I'm doing.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, like, if you listen to like the Punch Brothers,
they're good. I like the Punch Brothers.
Yeah, you listen to the Punch Brothers. You listen to Green Sky Bluegrass. You listen to Steel Drivers, I think their name is. And you go back and then you listen to Doc Watson and Bill Monroe, and then you go forward and you listen to the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band and Sam Bush, and that's pretty much it. Because anything else around there is like people doing the idiom, right? And that's what I think. I mean, it's like you're gonna do that. You're gonna do these stupid idiom things, and then it's going to become solidified. That's what I think about bluegrass and these cultures.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to debate about these different styles and why we like them and everything, but I know that we've got some picks that we'd like to share, and Josh, you wanted to go first, right?
Yes, I do, and mine is going to be kind of interesting, I think. It's going to be a little different this week.
That'd be nothing but a damn mistake. Music is life's great feature. Preacher, teacher, and reacher of hearts. Music is also very fun.
Yeah! Amen, brother.
That's right. Music gives soul to the universe.
So that's mine. It's called Paradox. It's done by Neil Young. He gets a bunch of people together, and I think it's on Willie's Ranch there, where he's got that old West town. And basically, what they do is they do a hour-long Tom Petty video. One of those Tom Petty videos where it's like Western, but it's post-apocalyptics. So. Basically, at the end of it, they have a bunch of music and some rather odd stuff, and Willie makes an appearance, and Lucas Nelson is a character in it, and I described it as really entertaining crap, which it was. It was very enjoyable, entertaining, absolute garbage. But if you would like to watch it, it's on Netflix. And I really enjoyed watching it because it's got Lucas Nelson, and it's very well shot, and it's got Willie Nelson, and it's very well shot. It's a very well shot film, and they look like they're having fun. But
what is it?
It's an enjoyable 50 minutes of crap.
There's no like synopsis of it, or like.
What are they going to say? I'll tell you what they're going to. Let me give you real quick.
Is this a stoner? Is this a stoner film? What is this?
Not even that. I wish it was that, because I can get that. But here it is. Paradox is the name of it. TV mature. There's nothing in it that's mature. Neil Young and his band of outlaws sow seeds of strange mischief and musical wonder under western skies in this dreamlike film by Daryl Hannah. Okay.
Sold.
So I tell you what. 50 minutes. Entertaining crap. That's what it is. Go into it thinking that. Don't expect a plot. Expect really beautiful shots. Like the cinematography is beautiful. The music is pretty good. The best part of it's when Willie comes in for a minute. And then you can see that it's Willie's town in his ranch. And then that's the best part. And it's 50 minutes of entertaining crap.
Is Lindsey Buckingham in it?
No, he's not. No, he was replaced by Mike Campbell in it.
Mike Campbell's in it now, but everybody.
No, actually, that would be great. He would have been a great one. But Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just FYI, did you know that Lindsey Buckingham got fired
Yeah.
from Fleetwood Mac?
Lindsey's
Yeah.
looking for work.
You aren't mad, are you, Lindsey?
We could probably get him as a guest.
That'd be hilarious.
You mad at me, Lindsey?
Yeah.
Bill Hader probably doesn't want to associate with the real Lindsey Buckingham. But what an upgrade for them though. They got Mike Campbell.
Yeah,
Mike
seriously.
Campbell.
Mike
They're like,
Campbell.
wow, we worked out. Did I tell you guys that when I was in Guitar Center the other day, I'm getting my strings that they have a Lindsey Buckingham model in there used for $4,000.
Holy cow. Yeah, you told us that.
Those ridiculous looking Turner Brown reversible pickup thing.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe that was his, and he got rid of it because he had to.
He got laid off.
Well, the timing might be a little off here, but yeah, he saw it coming, so he just started selling prototypes.
I got to get rid of these things. I got to make some money.
Oh
that's
man.
fun. Oh, what's the next pick?
So, yeah, who wants to go next?
I'll pick.
I'll go next.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, so my pick this week is Blackberry Smoke, and I was going through Apple Music and looking at the new music that had, just come out, and I'd forgot I'd seen earlier this week some friends posting about this band coming out with a new album, and so I'm going through, and they have this track with Robert Randolph as a special guest. So if you want to go ahead and run that, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, so you can't go wrong with either one of these guys, and I enjoy their music. It's fun. It's the closest thing you're gonna get to anything sounding like Leonard Skinner, which you guys know that's what I cut my teeth on. And they're just a cool southern-based rock band from Atlanta, and they look the part, and so it's a lot of fun. Go check out that album. What about you, Nick?
I honestly can't remember what the name of my guy is. Oh wait, Colin James. I literally just found him like an hour ago. No, Colin James. Go ahead, roll it.
So I'm gonna play it.
Baby, won't you ride with me tonight? Oh, baby, won't you ride with your daddy tonight? 'Cause you ride so easy while the moon is shining bright. Oh, baby, I wanna throw you a party tonight. Oh, baby.
Yeah,
Well.
Colin James. What was the name of that tune, Josh?
Well, that was Riding the Moonlight, Mr. Luck.
Yeah, there you go. And I don't know if that's a segue, one song segue into two, or if that's the name of the song. But I really liked the guitar and the acoustic guitar, the funkiness of it, and the interplay with the harmonica.
Yeah.
And this showed up on a Spotify acoustic blues channel I listened to, and it was really solid. And I want to check out the rest of that now. I was really surprised when I saw the guy that played it and stuff like that, and some of the videos. Like, this is good harmonica driven blues acoustic music. So
Sure.
yeah, for sure, check that out. So I guess that brings us into the Mojo Minute, huh, guys?
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So this is kind of a different one this week. Ever since I passed on actually buying a Martin, I've been obsessed with Martins. So I've got this Martin. I was lucky enough to find the Martin guitar as an illustrated celebration of America's premier guitar maker. And it was in a used bookstore here in Rockford before it shut down, and I got it for like $12. And it's got beautiful pictures in it, and it's Martin's history. And I started flipping through it the other day, and I was like, you guys know I got this Recording King, and it's kind of an interesting body shape, and I couldn't figure out what it is because it's like if it's in my dreadnought case, but the upper bout's like parlor size, and it's a 12 fret neck, 12 fret at the body. It's got a longer, like the guitar's longer, the body style of it's longer, and I was like, man, I've never really seen anything like this. It's some kind of weird, like it's got to be based on something, but I don't know what. So I was flipping through here. And I got to a chapter on Martin's orchestra model, the first modern Martin. And they had a picture of, so right before, basically in the early 30s, Martin was trying to make a more modern guitar for like orchestra players and stuff. And they were trying to get to the OM is what they were trying to do. They were coming out with a new body style because before then it was like all parlors and stuff like that. So they were like, okay, we're going to come out with this OM. But before they got to the OM, they started experimenting, and they came out with a guitar, the 00045. And there was a couple weird 00045s right before they got to the OM, and actually they started to get more of a dreadnought type bout at the top. But the famous 00045s came in the late 1920s, and one of the most famous and most sought after guitars ever, invaluable guitars ever, is Jimmy Rogers's custom made 00045, the country singer. And he played that guitar for a few years before he died young of, I think it was cancer. I think he died of cancer. And Ernest Tubbs idolized him, and Jimmy Rogers' widow gave the guitar to Ernest Tubbs, and he played it for like 40 years. And Jimmy Rogers had it made with Jimmy Rogers inlaid on the neck and thanks on the back. So most of you might not even know who Jimmy Rogers is. Has probably seen a picture of a guy with a Martin that has thanks on the back in huge letters. That was Jimmy Rogers' guitar. Well, I started to look at it and I was like, that looks just like mine. Exactly. And yeah, this has got to be a basically Recording King likes to throw back to those older style acoustics, and that's got to be what they were doing. They're throwing back to the old triple O's. So that got me really into triple O's. So I started looking into triple O's and what makes a triple O. Why are they so sought after? Why did Martin do it? What's the whole deal with the body style? And I ran into, have you guys ever heard of on YouTube Acoustic Life TV? It's a really good station. Check it out on YouTube, Acoustic Life TV. And this guy does it's Tony something. I'll post a link in the Facebook group, but it's this bearded guy that does all these reviews, lessons, and then they geek out about acoustics on this show they have, and it's in podcast form too. You can look it up. But they one of the episodes they had was 12 fret acoustic guitars versus 14 fret acoustic guitars. Okay. And I always just figured, well, 14 fret acoustic guitars, you just got a couple extra frets, right? That's not the case at all. The 14 fret acoustic guitar, and this is kind of ironic for me because it was between this Recording King and that Martin Rhodes series. Yeah. The Martin Rhodes series was an OM style guitar with a 14 fret neck, really focused sound. And this one is a 12 fret neck with a very open and bassy sound. And usually these are better and open and airy and good for chording and things like that, where the 14 fret OM guitars are better for finger picking and stuff like that. And I wanted to know more about it, and they explained it perfectly in this episode. And basically the deal is on a 12 fret guitar, they're actually really, really comfortable and really, really responsive because you got the X brace top, and since the guitar is elongated, the bridge can actually come up off the bracing away from the X of the bracing, where it meets at the top. And that gives you a lot more response and a lot more and makes it sound the way it does. Like the bridge is right in the sweet spot of the guitar and where you pick's in the sweet spot of the guitar. So you get that, you get all what I've mentioned. Where the 14 fret guitar, they have to basically shrink something, and that bridge isn't there. It's not, the body's not as elongated, so you get more of a focused body and a tighter response. And I had never thought of that before. I didn't think that had anything to
Yeah.
do with it.
Oh, it's huge.
And it is. If you hear people playing back to back, in fact, this video has a guy playing them, and they're completely different animals. It's not just 2 frets, and I'm actually just I'm pretty shocked by that. And I even remember I had a 14 fret resonator one time, and that a Regal, and then I had my Beard, which is a 12. The Regal was a 14, and their body styles were the same deal. They're both very different from each other. One was more of that OM. My Beard's more of that OM style, and my Regal was more of the no. Check
Triple
that.
O. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. The one, reverse it. Yeah. The triple O was more like my Beard, and then the other one was more like my Regal was more like the OM. But yeah, it fascinates me. And then but the thing is, you still see a lot of finger pickers that still play the 12 fret guitars.
Yeah.
And I think it's because you get a parlor style body, but you get that bass response and that open airiness out of it, which is really kind of a cool combination. And that's one of the reasons why I'm digging this thing so much. Now I want to go to Elderly and find an actual like 00045 and actually see if I can play it.
They play great, man.
That would be rad.
Yeah.
But,
I played a Marty Robbins there too, and those things are fun little things. The little tiny ones. And and they sound huge. They sound huge because they're joined just right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought about that. I always wondered, like, what the difference in those were. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and on that comment, what I'll close out on for my Mojo Minute thing is that I've been listening to this other podcast. In fact, I'm way behind on my fun podcast at the moment because I found this podcast called Cocaine and Rhinestones. And acoustic live TV turned me onto it, and I was like, this sounds ridiculous, and it's the history of country music. And there's this guy who I don't know if he's any relation to David Allan Coe, but it's this his last name is Coe, and he's a younger guy, and he basically walks you through the history of all these country music songs and all these country music artists, and kind of like the way that older country music started, and all these stories, and some of it's very dark and shocking, and a lot of it's about injustice in the music industry. And like there's one on Loretta Lynn, and how she had like, there was only 5 country songs that have been like banned by radio in history, and Loretta Lynn had like that in 1 year. Singing about the same subject matter as some of the men were, but it since she's a country music singer too, and it was coming from a woman, they thought it was inappropriate, like her song "The Pill," which isn't even about what you would think it's about, and that got banned. And actually, that was her biggest hit ever because it did get banned. That's another story altogether. But there's just a lot of stories, like a lot of stuff like that. Like I learned all about Jimmy Rogers and Ernest Tubbs in the first episode, and man, just really cool stuff. Just check that podcast out if you get a second. Even if you're not interested in country music, this is just like pre-rock and roll stuff. So this is really cool. And the stories, he's such a good storyteller, and he cross-references everything, and he really dug into this stuff. And it's just fascinating to listen to. I've been listening to it for 2 days now. But anyway, Clifton, are you a Jimmy Rogers fan? You seem like you would be, like you'd know about that stuff.
Well, he's actually from he was a railroad man, okay, and so he went up and down the length of the railroad a lot, but he had roots in Meridian, Mississippi. Which is not too terribly far from here. It's about 2 hours up the road. And there was one summer where we were going through there, and we stopped, had some downtime, and we stopped there near his museum. And I think I went in like to the thing, and you had to pay it was kind of an absurd amount of money to go in and actually see the guitar on display there. I believe it's on display there. I could be wrong.
Yep. No, it is for sure.
And they had an album that somebody had made where they had gotten the curators, and this guy created an album covering Jimmy Rogers songs, playing that guitar, and I have it somewhere in my collection. I need to dig that out. And it was really cool to hear that, and also hear that style, because I've always passed the sign, birthplace of Jimmy Rogers, birthplace country music, and I just never really checked out his music, but he's got a very interesting thing going on, like a they call him the blue yodeler. Yep. And he has just a really unique way he attacks music from a certain angle. And I think the other thing that's really interesting about him is that when I think it was Alan Lomax, maybe it was somebody else, that came into Bristol, Virginia, and rented out a place and advertised for country bands to come record, and it was Jimmy Rogers and the Carter family that showed up, and they were the first legit country music recordings to be marketed across the country, and he was right there, and that was like right before he died. So I mean, it's kind of like his final statement, and so there's a lot of cool things about it. We were talking about music earlier, maybe not understanding the cultural relevance, but sometimes when you pay attention to the things that are relevant to the culture around you and in your region, it just means something extra special to you.
Well, yeah, the one I just listened to was on Merle Haggard, and he sometimes he'll do something on just a song, and Merle Haggard did Okie from Muskogee, and when he wrote it, it was written. They were literally wrote it on a bus, and it was a satire. They were making fun of like rednecks and hippies.
Yeah, they were. And
it became a redneck anthem.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was a satire. He was making fun of them, but then he came around and he wrote "Fight Inside of Me," which is a patriotic song.
Yeah.
So back to back, and they always thought that the two actually were written right next to each other, like the two were like the same song. But whenever they asked Merle Haggard to explain both songs, he would only talk about "Fight Inside of Me" because his fan base was all those people.
Yeah,
like it was all like, it was at the time, it was veterans, and it was salt of the earth rural people. And he didn't ever talk about Okie from Muskogee.
Yeah.
He only talked about "Fight Inside of Me" because he knew he wrote it as a satire, and he knew it would kill his career if people found out. So he just played that up. And the first time they played that song, he was actually in a bar full of veterans, and they actually had said nothing. He said it was a dead room. Everything he played was not getting any response. So they busted out Okie from Muskogee for the very first time, and it has a line in there about on something street we don't tear up our draft cards.
Yeah,
and the place erupted. And after that, he had a hit.
Yeah.
And if you think about that is just, it's crazy. But anyway, there's all kinds of stuff on this podcast. And again, it's called Cocaine and Rhinestones. And there's only one season of it. And I think the kid's going to do another season. But it's just fascinating stuff. And it's really good if you want to find out kind of about the music industry and kind of the injustices and stuff that happened there and how people got away with a lot of stuff. It's just totally, like, you think the Johnny Cash story is crazy. There's a lot more crazier stuff than that.
Yeah.
With the Opry and everything else.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, well, that's Mojo Minute and a lot more, guys.
Yeah. A lot of, that's a lot of fun stuff. Yeah, it's interesting, the culture behind music, and we talked about that earlier, but I think you're right. I think you hit the nail on the head, is that even a lot of the styles of music that even we can understand culturally and are relevant to us kind of sometimes started as a little bit of satire or social commentary on an aspect of a way of life. And when an artist, they are doing something, they're very much aware of the fan base that they're playing to, and it's a lot of times it's custom created content, going directly at their audience. And I think that's why you can watch something that doesn't make sense to us, like maybe like Sierreno, but maybe there's a guy who lives in northern Mexico who he gets a gleam in his eye when he hears that music because it means something to him. Or or up in the up north with polka music, or down south with zydeco music. It means something to them way beyond the music, but it makes them think of an experience that they've had. And I think that's the magic in music. So I'm gonna leave with that. And I had a lot of fun tonight talking to guys, just kind of talking about what's new and talking about styles of music. And we'll have another episode ready for you guys next week, and I hope you enjoy.